Welcome back once again to the Imaginary Gallery. It's TJ, your host, and tonight's discussion is regarding self respect. Something I've mentioned in other videos, mainly the counter manipulation videos, where we cover how you're not stooping to the level of the narcopath, narcissist, or whatever when you use their own tactics on them. What you're doing is you're defending your own self-respect because their abuse is covert. So it isn't like they run up to you and slap you in the face and try to run away and you grab them. It's not like that. It's a slow, calculated, evil, diabolical scam that they pull, and you pick it up piece by piece over time, so it wouldn't really be appropriate to just take your hand and smash them over the face, but you assess what's happening and realize that these people are actually aggressing against you and have been for the longest time. So in response, you may counter manipulate, give them a taste of their own medicine, which they most always never want to take. They don't have empathy, remember. They'll gladly scam you and lead you on for 10 years and run away, but never expect someone to do that to them. When you're doing these counter moves, they are in the name of self-respect. I haven't really gone into a lot about self-respect, so I figured this evening I would go ahead and do things a little differently and reference Jackson MacKenzie's book again, Psychopath Free: Recovering from Emotionally Abusive Relationships with Narcissists, Sociopaths, and Other Toxic People, our favorite people in the world. So I figured I'd blend in his words and my words together on this subject. But he does tell it really well. He says these toxic people, they create chaos, and I would add drama, wherever they go. All the while they maintain a fake cover of complete innocence. They steamroll straight through each target's life, leaving behind nothing but destruction and confusion. Responsible and successful people suddenly find everything in their lives just falling apart. From once stable, cheerful friendships to careers and even self-esteem. In a matter of months or even weeks, the toxic monster will effectively destroy all of the harmony and trust that you have spent your entire life building. And they come into your life, charm you into trusting them. They engineer paranoia and panic, and then watch intently as you fall from grace. In the end, they disappear without another word, leaving you alone to pick up the pieces. You'll end up questioning your own sanity and your very understanding of reality. But with time, you'll come to fill this darkness with qualities you perhaps never valued in yourself, such as empathy, compassion, kindness, creativity. Now, in the efforts of these creatures to destroy and deceive, they always seem to underestimate a dreamer's strength. We, the dreamer, may not be ruthless, but we are resilient. Now, at some point, Jackson tells us, you will find that instead of trying to gain everyone else's approval, you're wondering why people can't be a little bit more like you are. Why can't they be easygoing, caring, selfless, kind, accommodating, and self-aware? And this is what he calls self-respect. This is your self-worth coming from within. Of course, it still feels good to make someone else happy, but now you have a much better measure of who does deserve your light. And this can bring you joy for the rest of your life. You'll start to discover that this toxic creature targeted you specifically because of these assets. And he tells us that this does not make those qualities a symptom of weakness. All you needed was the self-awareness and self-respect to take pride in them. Now he mentions his honorary aunt, Peru, and she says that toxic creatures are fascinated with humans' emotions and are forever honing their craft of mimicking normal. Empathetic people have the full spectrum of emotions, so it's like a master class for them. Also, these creatures can suck out of these people the life source that they themselves lack. Giving and trusting, empathetic people make the best targets. Of course, there's nothing wrong with being giving and trusting, but self-respect is simply about coming to expect the same thing from others. And this is when you begin to discover all of your strengths. Many of these were qualities that you possessed before but never valued. You realize that your compassion, your empathy, and your love are not weaknesses. They are the most incredible gifts in the world when applied to the right people. You'll start to understand who you truly are meant to be. Now, it took the psychopath/monster's cruelty to make you see exactly who you would never want to be. You can laugh now at their earlier mirroring when they told you that the two of you were just so much alike, because you realize now that you are actually nothing like them at all. You begin to explore your creative side, and you stop caring what others think of you. Old friendships may also start to change as you change and become more confident. Your boundaries are returning, or perhaps being formed for the very first time. But yes, I can think of an experience I had with such a monster who pulled the usual, oh, we're so much alike. And I was half aware during this period. When the person was gone, I could step back and look at it and think, this is retarded. Because it began with, oh, we're so alike. But then as time progressed and I started to see the mask slip off here and there, I saw a completely different creature. Plus, I knew how I was and how it was pretending to be like I was, but just couldn't pull it off by certain things it did and said, and I'd be like, don't say that you're like that, because what you do isn't like that, and of course, there'd be arguments and excuses. Yes, I would laugh at the earlier displays of, we're so much alike. And one of the funny things was one of them, at least, used to compliment me and say, you can see me for who I really am. Which, that came back to bite it. That was a piece of counter manipulation, because the truth is, the person was phony from day one, continuously, and piece by piece by piece, I started to figure, oh, this isn't real. And I would be foolish, which I've learned. That's one of the lessons I've taught you, is don't say anything about it, because you'll just be inviting an argument. But I would make the mistake of saying, you're not really whatever you said, because of, and I would list things that indicate otherwise, which would be good points. And the response, of course, because they lack any self-awareness and they want to maintain their mask, would be, oh, that's wrong. I told you that was only because of. And I'm like, I don't care what the because of is. You said you were this, but these 10 things indicate you're that. The funny thing was, the more information I gathered, the more I figured out and would put together, and I again made the mistake of addressing all of it, but it did serve for counter manipulation because I would say, here's the real story. Listen, Hillary Clinton, you're claiming to be honest, loyal, and have integrity. Well, you're not any of those things, and I'll tell you why. Because, and I would give like a detailed list, it would end with, so you're not all those qualities. You're disloyal, you're evil, you're fake, you're this. And, of course, I would be attacked with, don't try to tell me who I am. You know nothing about me. And I'd think, oh, really? Remember in the beginning? One of the things you loved about me was that I could see you for who you really were. Well, honey, here it is. But see, they don't think about that stuff. So it was just like a private joke for me, but for the other person, it was just another annoyance to try to cut through with excuses. But anyway, it's perfect because they say what they need to say for the moment to get what they want for the moment, and they don't realize that if they're making a statement that's supposed to be about themselves, like, oh, I'm the kind of person who's blah, 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 and then later they're completely different, you're like, well, wait a second. You can't hold them to the word because they said that then because they wanted something else to happen, and now it's abandoned, and now they're saying something else, and they're retarded. Oh, the other part is, too, is if I would make comparisons too, like, well, I know that you like blah, 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 and blah, because, well, I do too. And then I'd hear, I'm nothing like you. I think, really? Don't I recall you saying just how alike we were? Anyway, we go on to the next subject of boundaries. Building boundaries is one of the most difficult parts about developing self-respect. It feels unnatural, almost psychopathic at first. How can you be strict with people who need your help? And moreover, how do you deal with those who accuse you of being unreasonable or oversensitive because you're no longer their doormat? You must come to differentiate unreasonableness and hypersensitivity from healthy boundaries. The people who accuse you of being unreasonable are very likely to be rude, abrasive, or unpleasant themselves. The only difference is now that you're not their doormat. Because more boundaries means less complacency. You should never feel the need to defend yourself against a friend. You should never have to explain why you can't make plans one evening. And you should never have to walk on those dreaded eggshells, trying to rephrase a text to avoid an unpleasant interaction. These are called people-pleasing habits, and they are considered toxic to you, and often stem from a need to make other people happy. But sometimes there isn't any deeper origin to these patterns beyond simply being a sweet, gentle person. If you naturally tend to be agreeable and friendly, toxic people will sense that, like blood in the water for the shark, and they will latch on to you. They quickly discover just how to manipulate you with the guilt-tripping, passive-aggressive behavior and martyrdom, which of course snowballs as more and more of these people find you. You end up stuck in their cycle of insecurity, which is often the reason you are already desensitized to the toxic person's abuse. Now, you should always feel comfortable sitting down with a friend and mentioning a concern. Normal people are receptive to suggestions for improving themselves, especially if they're phrased kindly. Empathetic people should be especially invested in making sure they haven't hurt your feelings. But, here we go, toxic people will instead blow up. Or they'll blame their past and offer up fake apologies, only to continue the exact same sickening behavior the next week. Now, if you find yourself repeatedly excusing someone else's bad behavior, stop and consider why they couldn't simply behave in a way that didn't require excusing to begin with. So next, Jackson covers channeling empathy. He tells us that a lot of people live by a very simple motto, which is always be nice. These people believe that as long as they're nice, the world will be nice back. But as many of us have discovered, this just isn't the way things work. There are people out there who seek to exploit kindness, which ultimately results in our spirits being reduced to rubble. Once we recover from past experiences with such creatures, our first reaction is to declare war against the previous person we used to be. No more compassion, flexibility, or generosity. Screw it all. But Jackson tells us that's not a very good solution. He's telling us that the problem was never our kindness. The problem was those who manipulated it. Love and empathy are what make a dreamer's life so fulfilling. It's what gives us this unique connection with the world and the people in it, around us. Jackson says do not throw that away because you've been hurt. Instead, throw away those people who hurt you to begin with. Save your gifts for those who can truly appreciate and reciprocate them. If you have a constant, it's probably an example of one of these people. Abusers, on the other hand, manipulate your greatest qualities and try to make you doubt yourself. So how can you live in a healthy manner in a world where you're bound to encounter both good and evil people every day? How can you stand up for yourself and still remain with a strong sense of your gentle, compassionate nature? He says the answer lies in learning to channel your empathy, to disconnect from toxic people and not feel bad for doing so. The loss of innocence is your heart's way of beginning this path. Now that you're learning to discover who's healthy and who isn't, you understand that you're not obligated to make everybody around you happy. You can find the greatest peace by surrounding yourself with a small, trusted group of warm-hearted people. Then you will feel free to exercise all of your compassion without feeling exhausted and drained. When you're around those toxic people, though, you'll start to put these abilities on hold. This doesn't mean you somehow become a temporary psychopath, if there is any such thing. All you're doing is protecting your spirit, something the toxic person does not have. This means perceiving with your brain instead of your heart. Your heart will always be ready to trust and believe the best in others, but your brain will provide you with logical, objective assessment of the situation. This is the best way to deal with toxic people. You do not need to waste your emotional capital on these people. You only have so much, and you deserve to spend it on the ones who truly deserve it and who can make you really happy. The healing process is all about learning to discover your true strengths and surrounding yourself with people who share and appreciate such qualities. From there, everything starts to change. The dreamer's journey is universal and strangely circular, returning to the wisdom we've always had but never recognized.
Oh, drat. The guy I left you for found out that I was having sex with a paper boy. I don't know how he found out, but I can't survive like this. I gotta get out of here. When I called you, I thought you'd have some kind of feelings or sympathy for me. I told you regularly I was thinking of you. I'll never forget the way you treated me on that phone call. Hi. I know I haven't spoken to you in a while. I was just wondering if could I borrow like $1,000? I really need it. Oh, well, my boyfriend, he needs some medical bills paid for, and he doesn't have enough for it. What? Who told you he dumped me? What? The paper... You told him about the paper boy? Oh, how dare you! You can't trust anybody nowadays. Ah.
Well, I hope you're proud of yourself. Thanks a lot for telling my new boyfriend that I was a whore. That's none of your business. Not your place to tell him anything. But you know what? Thanks. You did me a favor. Because one of my customers told me he loves me. So you can get together with my ex-boyfriend and you can be a fag and kiss him. Ah, I'm not going to talk to you anymore from now on. Have a nice life. You two should be happy together. Ah!